Welcome back to Panel Day Superheroes Ahoy. My name is Tushar. Today I'll talk about the people of the Indus. So it's a graphic novel by Nikhil Gulati and Jonathan Mark Kenoyer. Um, this is a long form graphic novel on penguin. So there's not many books that have come, but I think I have had few books by Sarnath Banerjee. I also had some earlier books by Sarnath Banerjee, and I think I had some books by Arijit Sen. They are the people who have done a lot of graphic novels in the Indian context, and I think most of them have been out on Penguin. Um, so mainly what they deal with is you would get some books of substance. So there would be some very intriguing or very in-depth kind of topics. So talking about the people of the Indus, this book, as the title suggests, it deals with the birth of civilization in South Asia. There's a lot of heavy themes that are covered in this book. So there is things like linguistics, there's things about evolution of language, of script, of civilization, of how the civilization formed next to a river valley, and how uh, it also correlates to things like Vedas and our ancient texts, and there's so many different things. So having such a rich kind of subject allows the writer to not only showcase the depth of research that has gone into the book, but also uh, present his own perspective as a researcher. So as a reader, why would I be interested in this? I would talk about it purely from my perspective. Someone who reads different kind of formats like comic books or graphic novels, even fiction or non-fiction books. So I consume lot of different content in sort of the visual medium. Uh, so I, as a reader, first of all, was very interested in this because I read a few pages. I heard the recommendation from for the love of comics, and there's also a lot of recommendations that are given here on this page from Sarnath Banerjee, I think from Arijit Singh, like I said, and there's from Anshuman Chakraborty from the FTLO channel. Uh, so besides that, I also have a lot of interest in the birth of civilization of the Indian subcontinent. As a child, I have loved Discovery of India, the serial that used to come on Doordarshan, and it's a very unique kind of a pure memory that gets formed when you're a child, when you're a kid. And in Discovery of India, I really took a lot of interest in ancient India. So in schools, we were taught ancient India, medieval India, and modern India. My most favorite part was ancient India because it deals with civilizations like Gupta, Maurya dynasties, and Chola Empire. So something about how the dynasties come to be and then decline and flourish, and like the something like Vijayanagara Empire. So many of these stories I think are remaining to be told, and when any writer takes on a project like this, it really becomes very exciting. Also, it also depends how the project is realized. So it's not like always uh, it will end up in something which is fulfilling, right? Like very satisfying. But with this book, I found it really satisfying. Uh, I don't know what's the reason. So what I can do is share some of my notes. So I think what I liked about this is it takes a very methodical approach. It takes like a very organic approach. There is no rush to probably show one chapter on how the linguistics part evolved. It takes a very organic approach. There's also the archaeologist Jonathan, who has contributed to the project. So you get a very in-depth and you get a very seasoned and a insider's view on things. So there is this book deals with many themes. One of the themes is how archaeology gives us certain facts which might conflict with the facts that come from a linguistic theory. So linguistic theory mainly suggests that let's say I speak in Hindi, and Hindi derives from Sanskrit, So I might say that Sanskrit is the mother of civilization. So when civilization started, then Sanskrit is the origin of everything. Now that might conflict with someone from the West who might say that Sanskrit is derived from Greek, right? So then it becomes a very different kind of discussion. What the writer here talks about is that why don't we be led or be driven by curiosity instead of things like the the immediacy or urgency to belong or show that this language is superior or inferior. I mean, that's a different kind of topic, but yeah, that's what I liked about this book. It does not tend to, it tends go towards wisdom, knowledge, insights more than talking about, let's say, more radical or more kind of things which might lead to some conflicts or arguments. It's a very pure kind of, very organic kind of study. The writer does not make qualms about not being reaching to a conclusion. There is a lot of questions that are left unanswered. Obviously, when we are dealing with things that go back into 2000 or 3000 BC, then thousands of years of history can't be summed up by any writer. You can only suggest, and that I really loved. It reminded me of Discovery of India, because even in there, the narrator would leave us with questions and uh, not really provide that this is good or this is bad or this is what that conclusively happened. This is something good in the book. The writer obviously has some preferences, so instead, I mean, everyone's perspective would be different, but this book takes a very focused approach towards commerce, towards economy, towards how the merchants and how the trades flourished. And an interesting aspect about what I read from this book was these civilizations, that is Indus Valley civilization, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Lothal, the names that we associate, were more focused on the exchange of trade instead of warfare or conquering new lands. And there's an interesting chapter here called why Indus Valley civilization didn't build the pyramids. And that's a question that anyone can have, right? Like, if such a prosperous civilization, why didn't they have more visible things that stood the test of time? But the author here, why the Harappans never built pyramids, and I think the answer is not straightforward, but some things lead you to believe that they were focused. Their focus was on different things, on building things, on making everyone have a peaceful coexistence, than to go out there and conquer new lands. Then they talk about there's a kind of a sea chapter, like how trade flourished through the seas. And yeah, I will not be able to cover everything in this review. I would suggest you to go out there and buy this book. It does not cost much, and it's really exciting. It's not boring. There's a lot of themes, but there's surely few things that will excite readers of all ages. Some of the other things that I thought the book does well was, obviously, the writer is also the artist, so he draws things really well. So there is things like logos, iconography, hieroglyphics, scripts, scriptures, all these he has drawn really distinctly. This is the chapter on how the Indian kind of mythology or some of the ancient texts, they have some correlation with the Greek. Uh, and there's perspectives of different scholars and researchers in here. Then another thing I loved was how the writer talks about that through the ages our only sources is what we excavate, and there were certain symbols that were drawn on wooden signboards. And what he says was, while the wooden signboards have decayed through time, buried in the sands, the letters have remained, because the letters were written in chalk or gypsum. So that's another interesting thing. Another thing I liked here was how we always associate Indus Valley civilization with the river Indus or Sindhu. But the writer here offers lot of content, a lot of details on the river Gaggar. So Gaggar was another river valley that was flourishing, which was staying next to Indus. and how over the period of time this river also dried up, and then he very delicately handles how this entire transition happened from Indus and Gaggar river to the Ganga Yamuna system of valleys, and how urbanization and civilization itself transitioned over many years into this different region. And he also talks about how a culture has been dominant like Indus Valley, and how in the later context, somewhere around 1200 BC, the changes happened in which you saw a lot of micro cultures and micro art forms emerge. And essentially, it leaves you with the question, it leaves you wondering, is it good having a dominant kind of cultural belief, or the micro one is better? Then obviously there is a lot of different civilization covered like Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and the Indus Valley civilizations. There's a lot of focus and content spent on how the river valleys emerged. And yeah, so this is quite an intriguing, quite an interesting book. In conclusion, I would like to say the good points is this book presents you a lot of well-researched content. If you are someone who gets excited by history, seeing how and whys of so many things, like why do civilizations come to be, how do they decline, and in our current present day context, do we have any influence of the past civilizations, of culture, of religion? Uh, Another thing that the book does really well is obviously the art. So there is, as you can see, very pretty art to look at. The book format is really interesting, and these are the 5 chapters that the writer deals with. So a lot of focus on art, culture, aesthetics, artists, and merchants and trades, and the housewives, and of scriptures of civilization. So this is a page where it ends, really beautiful page. The writer chooses to switch between a larger page art and also these smaller panels. The panels are very pretty to look at for the content that is there. One point where I would say it really challenges you as a reader is on in some of the pages the content becomes too much. So I mean, it's not your conventional comic reading, I agree, but sometimes the text or the images, they become too much in a page. So it takes you a lot of time to process the things and probably reread few things. Apart from that, I think it's a really good book. Would suggest everyone to get this. Uh, this is the kind of projects that I really love supporting, and I think many people have supported it. And yeah, that is about The People of the Indus by Nikhil Gulati and Jonathan Mark Kenoyer. And yeah, that's about from me. Thank you for watching Panel Days, and see you in next video.